when we first saw this happen last week, I was thinking to myself, this is a textbook case of how not to handle an SEC enforcement. You basically negotiate a settlement, you get the SEC commissioners themselves on board, and then at the last minute, you pull the rug out from under it, you refuse to settle, you fight them, and then you make a provocative public statement that basically rubs salt in the wound of the SEC and proclaims that the guy has all this integrity when they have just cited, tens, if not scores, of false statements. And I thought, well, okay, so what explains that? And the answer is that he basically said, it's my way or I'm walking out. I don't get my way, I'm out of here. Which, to put it mildly, is rather immature behavior. And then the board, they caved in. Faced with that as the dire alternative, he got his way. I think that does show, it's not just Tesla, but in any of these companies with a charismatic founder with a big chunk of stock who's willing, to behave basically like a child, they're vulnerable. What can they do?
I know, but Tesla, there aren't too many companies I can think of where the CEO is so integral to the perception of the company itself and conceivably its valuation in the stock market.
Well, I think, there are some other Silicon Valley examples. A terrible one, of course, is Theranos, where, Elizabeth Holmes marched off that cliff with her.
It's never a public company, but
Not
yes.
a public company, true. Again, Uber, not a public company, but then they had a charismatic leader. They seem to be, negotiating a transition there. It's not that unusual. And by the way, I want to give credit to Tesla and Musk. They have accomplished phenomenal things there. And that's why, to me, it's just so tragic that they would let it all get undone by this kind of essentially.
But he did come around to it then. It took him a couple of days. It took some pressure from investors learning about the potential settlement he said no to, but then he did reverse himself.
Yes, he did. And I think the stock plunge had, a huge amount to do with that, as well as every commentator that I know saying, this is a great deal, you're crazy not to take this. And all of his, lawyers and advisors saying the same thing. Essentially, they finally went in and basically begged to get a deal. And of course, they didn't get the same good deal they would have had if they had done the sensible thing to begin with on Thursday.
Jim, who's going to chair this company?
Okay, well, I know there are board members who would love to see James Murdoch do it, but I think the key is, I think from all I know, he'd be a very good choice. He'll be leaving 20th Century Fox. He has time, and by the way, you're going to need some time. That chairman job for the next year is going to be a full-time job and then some. But I think most of all, it has to be somebody who Musk will listen to. I would say from the get-go, I would have to sit down with him and say, I want your solemn word that you are never going to threaten to quit like that again. That is no way to treat a board. A board is an asset. A chairman is an asset. He can help Musk. Musk has tremendous strengths, as we now know all too well. He has some weaknesses, and that's where a board can really help. Who is going to want to do this job? It's got to be somebody who knows Musk, who can get along with him, who's mature, who has very thick skin, and who has confidence. Again, Murdoch is good because he doesn't need the job, he doesn't need the money.
He knows the company.
He knows the company, he knows the personalities. He would have the stature to say, if Musk is behaving in a completely juvenile, inappropriate way, he could say, look, I'm out of here. I don't need this, I can leave. And that would really, I think, help curb some of his impulses.
So do you expect now that the SEC has put all of these rules in place, more independent directors, new chairman, things are going to be better from a corporate governance standpoint at this company or not?
Well, the experts I talk to on this are skeptical. Unless Musk is really ready to look himself in the mirror and gain some maturity here, if he has actually learned something from all of this, he is in a controlling position. He has a large economic stake in the company. His identity is tied up in the company. He could still, threaten to leave and essentially,
You think the addition of these two independent directors is going to change the balance of power at all?
It can't hurt. I think it will help, but I ultimately think it's going to depend on Musk's willingness to accept some guidance.
Really quick, a viewer says Apple did okay without Jobs. And my answer back was because he created Tim Cook. Is there anyone you can think of who Musk has created as a successor, an heir, anything like that?
No. Everybody has told me this is not Apple and Steve Jobs yet. Maybe there could still be somebody groomed, but no, there is no one there.